It's NASCAR time on Prime Sports Network, and that means Eric Smith. Oh, Eric, I'm supposed to shield you and then intro you. So there you go.
Bring me in, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Here we go.
it is what it is. Hey, I think the viewers are happy that we didn't use the 30 minutes that we did on last week's show. See, I could stop this and re-edit it, but last week we did a 30-minute stop and edit, and I think they're probably happy we did that and didn't show the 30 minutes. But they also didn't get an opportunity to find out about how you did with your college. I'm in college with your boys.
Kind of like college, yeah.
With your boys basketball tournament.
Yeah.
Let's just say it didn't go too well. So
no,
leave it at that.
Yeah.
But Indiana is actually playing well right now in college basketball.
They are, yeah.
And that's important to note because we're going to be talking a lot of March Madness now that we are just one day away from March. So can't wait for that. But this is NASCAR, and we've got wall-to-wall motorsports on the channel now. Matter of fact, we had our F1 season preview with CJ before he took his trip. They're kicking off their season this week in Bahrain. IndyCar kicking off their season in St. Pete, and then they go away for a month. But you're going to report on that and record your, what is it? Is it going to be a preseason, or is it just going to be a race preview?
More race, since we did the preseason before the test. So that way we're not kind of jumping over things we already said. So
there you go.
Stick to get my list of about 5 things that we'll be watching this weekend and hit some trends and favorites and quickly, and just kind of do that for a preview for the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Pete.
And that's coming up on Sunday or Saturday?
Sunday.
Sunday, okay.
Right, noon. Luckily not the same time as the NASCAR race. We ran into those troubles some last year, and there'll be a few this year, but luckily the IndyCar race is at noon, green flag is 12:30. NASCAR race isn't 3:30 is when the race coverage starts, so that means green flag's probably 3:47 around there. So IndyCar race will be over before that happens.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to have them back to back. And we can't complain about the time because they're on the West Coast. We complain enough about the time when they're on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So they for some reason they decide not to really change the time much when they go from one coast to another. I can't imagine why.
Pretty much the same no matter what. Where you got IndyCar is 12:30. That's right where we've been saying NASCAR should be. But so luckily it's not a head-to-head factor this weekend.
Yeah, not this weekend. Want to thank everybody as far as our viewership has really started to climb in 2023. So thank you out there for watching. And if you do enjoy the videos, want to remind everybody not only to subscribe so you make sure you get the videos available as soon as they're posted, but also if you enjoy it, please like the videos, share with comments. You have any criticisms, you have any questions, we definitely want to interact with you regarding that. And like the video, as I mentioned, and share the video, too, to your friends and everybody on your social media. What would you call that? Your social media platform?
Yeah, I'd say, that's probably a good one. Yeah.
One of our viewers, Bobby Ferguson, I'm not sure if this was something we missed last week or was this week, when Bobby said, I've heard that the owners already sold the land around the track. Was he talking about the California?
Yeah.
So they have to do away with the big track. Thanks for the show. So why did Bobby feel the need to reference that?
Because we're talking about them moving Fontana, the reason why, from a 2 mile to a short track. So, and which was confirmed. I don't want to guess. I forget. There was a total. I just forget what the total was, amount of acreage of that land that NASCAR, because remember NASCAR's bought up a lot of these tracks. So formerly ISC tracks, NASCAR owned them. So what they did was they sold 90% of it to a developer that is going to use for warehousing. So NASCAR does not own that land here, whatever that date is, anymore. So that's what he's referencing.
Okay.
Is it has to be a short track because they kept a very small portion of it. But the figure I heard was between $500 and $600 million that NASCAR sold that to.
Okay.
So they're going to take some of that money and invest that into the short track. So it's kind of like they're not really paying for it. They sold the land, which is a wise business move. You could sell valuable land and make millions off of
Yeah.
it. Keep this in mind. They sold Fontana, that land, for more money than it cost Roger Penske to buy the IndyCar Series in Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Tells you how much money that in Southern California. I mean, I could see where that's land that's needed. So now, yes, it has to be a short track, but there also has been the rumor, does NASCAR just go ahead and sell that other little plot of land for even more money, and which could also be a wise investment.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the rumor, but it also gained some legs last weekend. It's like, well, wait a minute, why don't they do this to Texas? That's the worst track out. Just sell all that land.
Yes, please.
It's the Dallas Metroplex, so there's got to be some Texas oil developer that would want that land.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a wise move. That's why NASCAR is trying to buy these tracks, because you got to look at it as a whole. I mean, that's a lot of money that they just gained by that transaction. So sad that race was another good one as far as
typical.
See it go away, but it is also a wise business move that if it does work on the short track, and you got to pay for itself with multi-millions of a profit even after the fact. So I can't blame them.
By the way, speaking about our viewers, we did have a couple of viewers on our Playbook Experts channel. Now, I manage the channel from Mark Lawrence, the Hall of Fame handicapper. So if you've never been to that channel, you really should. If you're into handicapping, all sorts of big sports, and basketball is going to be huge for the channel in the next couple of months. But I'm just bringing this up because I think a viewer or two mentioned Eric's the difference between Eric's sound and my sound, and I don't think there's a problem with Eric's sound. I don't hear a problem. There is a little bit of an echo difference between Eric's sound and my sound, and that's mainly just because of, I'm in the main control room and Eric is where he is. But keep in mind, Eric and I last year had a lot of, not problems, but we had a lot. It took a while before we can kind of get you to where you are now. To where we were like, hey, people can hear you now. That's the main thing. There's none of this in and out, which was going on with the sound. That was a pain in the butt. So yeah, we feel like we're in a good area now. But if anybody out there is, hey, you know what? Yeah, that's an issue for me, or I can't hear this. Yeah, please let us know, because that's the main thing. Is we want to make sure you can hear everything Eric is saying. Yeah. That's important.
Yeah, you don't just look at me. That's not a good thing. No. You want to hear.
That's just for your wife. Yeah.
Yeah. Was that a voice for, was it face for radio? Yeah, that's what they call it. Yeah.
Also, we were just talking off the air. We will have a lot more of a definite confirmation on this. We talked about it last year about doing a reaction video. I've done them for football with the Jets on my channel, but it's always good to have a partner. And so Eric and I have been talking about it, and we decided that as of right now, we are aiming for the first Talladega race in April. April?
Yeah, 22nd, 23rd, that weekend, whatever that. Okay.
So we're
second to last weekend.
We're gonna use that as an opportunity to do a reaction, and we're not going to do the whole race, because doing Talladega the whole race would probably be kind of boring. Unless of course you're just waiting for the big wreck. But we're gonna figure out maybe doing the last 30 to 50 laps. So we'll figure it. But that's what we're gonna do. Eric and I will be watching the race as it happens. We'll also have to think about maybe even doing it live. So instead of just recording it, once we have a firm commitment on this, then we'll schedule it live. And the sooner we schedule it live, we'll start promoting it, weeks in advance. A week in advance at the least, to let everybody know that we're going to be doing a live reaction video, picking it up at a certain point in time with a certain amount of laps to go. So we'll remind everybody next month as we get closer to that, and we hope that's something that you're going to enjoy watching. And if there's anything similar to that, if you have any suggestions on what you're looking for us to do, please let us know. Okay, now let's get this show on the road by first talking about last week. And we just referenced it, another good race. So we were happy about that. We all got the win for Kyle Busch, and it's now pretty secure. We talked that, hey, you know what? Was it just a one race thing with Kyle at Daytona? I don't know. Don't think so. We all kind of agreed that there's something different there. he probably should have won the race, as you referenced. He really did win the Daytona 500, not the 530.
Yeah.
So that's that. And he sure came out. Now, he didn't dominate the race, but this is the new NASCAR. You don't have to dominate the races anymore. All you have to do is make sure that you have a strong car and you're there at the end of the race. And that's exactly what Kyle did.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think he overcame that speeding penalty and came all
That's
the way back
2 weeks
up.
in a row, speeding penalty winners.
Yep. It's saying something. We'll maybe speed early at Vegas and see if he can make up for it. But it's also the key that it used to be kind of in the past, the speeding penalty was almost your death sentence for that race. You couldn't pass. It was hard to get back through. And, well, he got all the way back to 11th at the end of the stage one, and then moved up to second by the end of the second stage. And it's not like he had a bad car. And that's like you said, the new NASCAR. He was there. It obviously had speed in it. And then they kept tinkering with it the whole race. And as he said, he got to the end of stage two in that battle with Chastain. And Chastain's leading. He sweeps both stages. He led 91 total laps, so he's probably thinking his car is good. Kyle knew that in that battle, like, I just need a little bit more. And that was the difference. And it's like he's an undeserving winner, too. And like you said, and you also got to look at the Clash. He was third in the Clash. He had a good car then. So you could kind of see that. If you're saying as we go here, again, it's so early. We've not had a true meat of the schedule as far as we've had a super speedway and a 2-mile track. But the championship favorite, I think you got to say Kyle Busch right now. I mean, who else has been that consistent and that fast? And so.
Well, what are the futures right now? Who's in the lead?
Busch
and Elliott.
I don't have it in front of me. I think Busch. Yeah,
they're both 6-1. And look. It went right back real fast because Busch was 12-1.
That's why I'm just throwing money his way early.
Yeah.
It's like that. My strategy from last year, if you notice, I just keep taking a lot of drivers while they're especially 12-1, 14-1, 20-1.
Well, you have 11 drivers now. I have 13, and CJ has 7. You have 3,000 invested in Kyle so far with out of the 2,700 you have invested. So basically you're up $3,000 with Kyle. CJ is actually up 300 with Kyle. And what am I? I am up 800 with Kyle. So we're in a nice situation with Kyle Busch. And the thing is now is if he continues to have a strong season, you basically have kind of got to pick him every week. You just have to, because you have to be able to maintain that level, especially if you think he's going to be there in the Final Four.
And that's why I've been grabbing a lot of those 8, 9, 10-1 guys, because they're basically saying, especially with Kyle, you win a race, your odds are really going down. And if he was 12-1 and he basically got chopped in half, what are these 8, 9-1 guys going to go to? 4-1, 5-1, and they're pretty much going to stay there. So you got to invest now in order to maximize what you're going for. So while they're all grouped together, you might as well just keep throwing money their way. And then maybe by mid-season, you can kind of own in on a little bit to let's decrease this, because, I mean, you got to look at the 2 winners, JTG and Richard Childress Racing. We're still talking. Right? I mean, at the end of the day, those are your winners so far. Yeah. And you can make, I know we'll get into it, but you can make a strong case Trackhouse or RCR or RFK Racing could win again this weekend and just really keep this thing going.
And the top bargain that's still out there, there's a couple. Now, I decided to put money on Bowman this week just because I think he has looked a little bit better so far to start the season compared to the way he ended the season, and he's 30-1. But you and I completely agree. You have gone a little bit crazy in a positive way with Chase Briscoe. So I have 8,000 invested in Briscoe, but you have 12,000 invested in Briscoe already. And I have him on my fantasy team. I know I stole him from you on my fantasy team.
You got him. Yep.
So you can check out our fantasy teams and our futures at racereviewonline.net. But yeah, what about Briscoe? Because will again, like you said, we'll get into it in a little while. Surprised not to see him on your picks this week. Because I picked him, and I like him a lot this week.
I do too. I just had all those guys just were grouped together up top, and I feel like kind of hedging on the Toyotas I feel good about. Obviously, you see a lot of my Toyota picks. I just felt like there wasn't enough room to branch too far down. But yeah, I mean, he was fourth the last time out there, eighth in stage one of the spring race before he got in a crash. And then next week is Phoenix. And oh, by the way, he won the Phoenix race last year, and he was fourth in the fall race. So
you better take him now.
Yeah.
Because if he wins the next couple of weeks, those odds are going way down.
Especially after him marching to the round of eight, almost the championship round of eight last year. Not much has changed. I mean, nothing this season has said that like he can't do it again. So Phoenix is still the championship race. If Ford looks like the team again next weekend, I know we're getting a week ahead of ourselves. Then if
don't remind me that we have to watch Phoenix again already.
Yeah, next week.
Do we really have to watch that racetrack again already?
I'm curious if it races like last year, because if it does and Ford is the manufacturer to beat, then even more so to get on Briscoe now. You're not going to get him at 40-1 come the fall, especially like you said, if he wins, that'll go to 20-1 at the very worst.
At the worst,
very minimum. That's why I'm investing in him now, because I believe him. I don't. Yeah, Stuart Haas. I wrote about it this week. They're kind of struggling out the gates in terms of points. Them and 23-11 just don't necessarily look great. I mean, I think 5 of the bottom 8 drivers in the standings right now belong to those camps.
Okay.
But Briscoe's caught up in a wreck in Daytona. Briscoe was battling a bad handling car last week. He still got the 20th. Ryan Preece has been collected in 2 wrecks, not of his doing. Same with Almirola. So I don't really look at it as performance-wise they're down. I just feel like it's bad luck. So
that's why we have to take advantage of those reasons why they're not, the results aren't there, and give them the proper excuses they deserve at this point. In saying that, you definitely need to see something. Even if he doesn't win, you got to see a couple of strong performances the next 2 weeks.
Yes, I'd say before we get to the East Coast, so we got 2 races, I need to see something. If you go back east and you've got 4 finishes of 20th or worse, then yeah, you might want to, even though it's early and not a lot of these tracks can correlate to much the rest of the season that we ran so far, but you got to see something. And that's why I'm giving the benefit of the doubt right now. And we'll see what happens these next 2 weeks.
CJ got the win on our fantasy team because he has Kyle Busch. So he takes advantage of that. But you were really the big winner again because of the fact that you had the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 10th place winners.
Yeah. And 12th or something like that. They were all right there.
Yeah, all there. So, and I guess to me, looking at it, I would say the big surprise, which is why I put a couple of bucks on this week, has been Keselowski.
Yep.
So I felt, and again, we'll get into that. I just felt that, you know what? And you talked about this last week.
Yeah.
When you look at Keselowski and you see those odds at 50-1, you wonder in a month or two if you're going to be looking back and saying, remember when he was 50-1?
Yeah, you're getting a champion at that. And like I mentioned last week, because you're like, why did you take Keselowski this week? And throw last year out. He was still learning the car. He spun on the backstretch. He was 27th, and Buescher was 34th. His teammate, his other car he owns. I just liked what I saw out of him in Daytona, and it felt the momentum was turning at the end of last year, and they turned it into a good performance on Sunday. I mean, Keselowski, even getting spun on lap 41, he still rebounded. He was 10th by the end of the second stage and got a top 10 and 7th. So you got to ask yourself, what if that spin doesn't happen? Where does he end up in this lineup? Because he was coming. So I really feel their pace right now looks so much better. And one could say that, could they win Sunday? You never know.
I don't know.
I mean,
Buescher's actually right alongside of him. He's racing well.
So that's where this parity is sticking. And you gave him a year to learn, and it's like, I think this is probably what we expected last year out of them. As most people, I think they underestimate how much work it is to turn a team around. And they're there. And yeah, as you said, you're getting 50-1 odds for somebody like that. It takes one win, and that thing is going to go way down.
That's right. So you are up right now by 430 points in already because of the Daytona bonus points. But again, everything is working out for you so far in fantasy. It didn't work out for me last year, though. I got off to a really good start because of Daytona, too. So
got to sustain it. Yeah,
not
I
the
was
start,
puzzling.
it's the finish.
It is. And the fact that they bounced from Daytona to that last week, like, okay, they're there. And it's still hanging. It's just, I just don't know what that start, who to drop. But, I mean, Stenhouse, again, is sitting there to win.
Stenhouse is still available. Yep.
And he was 12th last week. So it's not like he was bad.
Well, this is it. This is it. If he has a good result this week,
you gotta.
And one of our drivers is like 3 straight weeks of not doing well, somebody's got to make a move.
You got to. And I just kept looking at my team. I'm like, I keep going back to, like, you'd think Suarez would be the weak link, but he's got 2 top 10s this year already. It's like,
no weak link.
I don't feel like I could drop him. It's like, I don't know who I'd even drop to snag him. But if this season, because I keep asking myself, looking at the way it goes, I'm like, I don't think Kyle's a one and done. I think he'll win again this regular season.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see some guys win multiple times, which means I don't know if we get to 16 winners, just because I feel like some guys are going to win multiple times.
I don't know. We'll see.
That's a playoff guy sitting there that none of us have yet.
Nope.
So
there are some options. I mean, look, Cindric has kind of got off to a slow start for me.
Yep.
I'm okay with so far the way Burton's racing. CJ, he has to decide on like a Dillon, a Gibbs, a Priest. So, yeah, I just get the feeling that another good performance from Stenhouse, and he'll probably be picked up by one of us.
Yeah, because this could be a good week for him. He's not bad in Vegas.
No, that's why I'm saying I think there's a shot, yes.
There is.
It could happen.
Which is going to leave a good driver, a bigger team driver, I think, also going to be there.
Remember last year, you dropped Christopher Bell early to pick up Chastain.
Yeah.
I pick up Bell, and we both wind up with a long season of big-time driver on our team. So it could happen again. You never know. That's what happens nowadays. The parity is just awesome, and you don't know where it's coming from. It's time now to preview the race officially at Las Vegas. They race 2 times a year. And this segment is brought to you by PlaybookSports.com. And again, please check out the Playbook Experts YouTube channel, where we are, as I mentioned before, we are posting our just this section. Actually, this is a segment every week. We post this on the Playbook Experts YouTube channel. All right, now, Las Vegas, as I mentioned, 2 races a year. 9 of the last 12 winners have started in the top 10. 6 of the last 12, so 50% in the top 5. But how about this? This is the most interesting. No pole sitter winners since 2009, which was Kyle Busch, and it's the only time ever a pole sitter has won at Las Vegas. They've been racing there since 1998. How strange is that?
That is bizarre. And especially for a track over the years where track position was key, and the pole sitter has the best track position of anybody to start the day off, and they only won once. So I thought that was staggering. So it doesn't bode well that whoever wins the pole.
Unless it's Kyle.
Unless it's Kyle, then he's the only one that's done it. And he's probably the best driver and best car out there right now. So that would be an intriguing storyline going into Sunday. But yeah, it just seems, and we talked about this in the past for some of these tracks, that qualifying is about short run speed. You obviously got to make 1 lap. The race is 267 laps. You got to be good over the course of a run. In Vegas, while we've had late race restarts, you've also had long runs before you got to that point. So some of these guys that might have good short run speed have fallen way back and don't have the track position to make up for it with the late caution. So yeah, that's the kind of battle you're fighting, which is, I think, I like the new P&Q, they call it, practice and qualifying sessions. Because they're so short, there's not much you really can do to change the car. So you kind of are qualifying what you brought, and then you adjust as the race goes on. So that's why you're seeing more parity as far as starting positions, guys outside the top 10 winning, because they're qualifying a race car. They're like, hey, I don't care about where I start. I'm going to charge on race day. Where these guys that might have, hey, I'm going to go for track position early, but my car may not handle well early, and you have those comers and goers, which in turn makes a better race for us to watch at home.
It can't just be a coincidence that we had the different car, but we've also had the different practice rules. So you don't have this hours upon hours of practice time, as you've mentioned quite a bit, especially last year, which clearly helps the more dominant teams.
Well, you got to look at last weekend. Kyle Larson had one of the faster cars. I mean, he was 15, 16 laps down, and he was up there battling with those guys. He was staying out of the leader's way, but he never fell another lap down. In fact, I think he made a couple laps up. Really strong. His lap times are really strong. In fact, the last stage, they were showing he had the fastest car by 3 seconds in the end. He was that good. But this is where the practice and qualifying or lack thereof helped, because the issue that happened would have crept up in the practice that was rained out.
Yep, good point.
They would have had time to rectify it, which therefore you go into the race. That car that was that good would not have had the issues and probably would have, dare I say, a Homestead ran away level from the win.
He would have started in the back possibly.
More than likely, because he probably wouldn't have qualified.
Yeah.
But
that would have been
okay. Been fun to watch come through. Yep. And he probably could have dominated in the end. So that's where this kind of changes, because these issues or these setups are things that they wish they had more time on. They don't, and they have to deal with it during the race, where, as I always said, you give these big multi-million-dollar teams with unlimited budget time to 3 practice sessions to figure it out.
Forget it.
They're going to have it figured out before they get in the race. So yeah.
Glad that's it. That's good for us.
Yep.
By the way, Ford has won 5 out of the last 10, including Logano in October, even though Chevy's won 3 out of the last 5. So I guess Toyota's the odd man out, but they're not in bad shape. So really can't discount any of the manufacturers this week. And there have been 5 different driver winners, 5 straight different driver winners. Okay, so no CJ picks this week because of the fact that, as we mentioned, he's on vacation. Well, it is vacation. And he will be back in a couple of weeks, but he'll make the picks and we'll post them up on racereviewonline.net before the race, whenever that's going to be. So on the show, at least this week, not sure about next week, but at least this week, it's just your picks and my picks. And so we both picked 4 drivers the same. And 3 were top contenders and 1 was a long shot.
Then Kyle? You on the Kyle train? Okay. The other Kyle? Both Kyles? No, just Busch. Then I'm going to say it's got to be those Toyota groupings that are all like 10 and 12 to 1. Hamlin.
Yes.
So 2 more. Bell?
No.
Truex?
No.
Reddick. Reddick's 15 to 1. You didn't go Reddick? No. Okay. I'm trying to look at my list here. Who's between them? I would definitely say Bowman.
No.
Was one of the picks. Oh. Shocking.
All those drivers were on my list. But I went a certain strategy and Chastain. And now the long shot.
I'm trying to think of who my deeper one was.
Yeah, you don't have many long shots, so it should be easy.
No, I ran out of. Yeah, I'd say it's either Bubba?
Yes.
Okay. So I knew it had to be one of him or Suarez that I ran out of money for. Yep.
So, yeah. And this is going to be, I tell you what, I would be surprised in a way if we actually made some money on this race, because this is going to be so hard. There's just so many good drivers that are good at this track.
Yes.
And even the young drivers who are just starting to race here are good at this track. So it's going to be really hard. That's why all the drivers you were saying that I was saying no, I was going to use them, but I went a different strategy. Instead of doing like 3 10 or 4 40s, 4 10s for 40, I basically went like 2 for 20. Or, so I kind of did more quality than quantity, if you want to use that kind of term. Not exactly. But all right, let's start with Kyle. And I came this close to not taking him because of the 6 to 1. I was like, the 6 to 1. I don't want to do that. But that's the reason I dropped Larson, because I couldn't take them both, or at least that's the strategy I went with. So it was Kyle Busch or Kyle Larson, and I went with the guy that's hotter right now and that has just as good, if not better, history at this racetrack. So in that respect, I think it was pretty easy for me to make the decision if I had to make the decision, which I did. So you took them both. Who would you? I can't really guess because Kyle was a little less of a number. So if you had to pick one of them, which way would you go?
Bush, just because the car that he's in was really good there last year. Tyler Reddick was in that car. And Tyler Reddick, let me go to Tyler Reddick here. He had 3 consecutive top 10 finishes. 7th is being one of them in this race last year. He was 6th in the fall. He left 32 laps in that October race. But I also look at Kansas. If you want a light track to kind of look at comparisons, look to Kansas. Very similar tracks that you can kind of use. Last year showed if you were good at one, you were good at the other, and vice versa. So you look at Kansas. Reddick was outside of top 30 in both of those races, but he crashed while leading with tire issues also in both. So I kind of look at that as, all right, well, he did the same thing last week in Fontana while leading and had an issue with a tire. Kyle won. Well, Kyle mentioned that they took some things from his style and from last year's style with Reddick and merged them into one, and look at how good he did. So don't you kind of think they're going to do that again at this race? And that's like, he's got all the momentum, like you said. And Larson's not, he's got 2 consecutive top 2 finishes in the spring race. He won in 2021. He's had fast race cars, but he doesn't enter as hot. He does have speed.
That's the thing.
That's why I just couldn't differentiate between the two as betting. He's like, I want one of them. I feel like one of them is going to win, so I might as well just take them both. But if I had to side with one or the other, and you got to look, Kyle coming into the fall race last year, so the last time they raced there he was 15-1, and they got him all the way down to 6-1 in a car for a team that hasn't won a championship since 1994.
Big difference.
To me, that was saying a lot. And last year, Tyler Reddick in the same car was 8-1, so they even have Kyle 2 spots lower than that. So they're really saying something here with him. So I would side his direction more than Larson, but either are strong.
Yeah, keeping in mind, Kyle, again, we referenced the pole win in 2009, the only win for Kyle at this racetrack, which this is Las Vegas. This is his track. This is where we would like to win more than anywhere. Last 5, 3rd, 4th, 3rd, 3rd, 6th. That's pretty damn good. Led 49 laps last year, but only 57 laps the last 7 races. I'm not worried too much about that because of the fact that he was strong last year with a different car, even though, see, that is a tricky thing that we're going to have to keep reminding ourselves and the viewers about. The different cars, especially, the different seats for Kyle Busch and for Reddick. For me, I think it works against Reddick. I kind of put it against him, which is why I didn't pick him this week, because I want to see some results first. Now that he's in a different car with a different team. Kyle, he's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best ever. He could pick things up pretty quickly, and he's already done that. So I'm not worried about Kyle, and I don't really look too much into that, except like you were saying, maybe for bonuses. Like, oh, that's a bonus. Look at the car he's in. That was strong last year. Speaking of RCR, I also put money on Dylan. I put a couple of bucks on Dylan as Kyle's teammate at 50-1 because he has 9 top 15s in his last 12 at Vegas, including 4 straight. And in the Xfinity Series, dominant. 6 top 10s, 4 top 5s in a win, and 7 Xfinity Series races, and dominated in 2015, leading 183 of 200 laps at this track. So this is actually one of Austin Dillon's better tracks.
Yeah, look, he's not been terrible.
No.
He finished runner-up in the Clash, 1 spot above Kyle, and then the Daytona 500, he was second. He technically would have finished second in that race at the Daytona 500, not the Daytona 530, and he was 9th last week. So he's not been bad.
No.
And 50-1 is a good number, and especially they're starting to take notice because most races last year, and even some starting out this year, other than Daytona, He's used to be around the 75 to 100 to 1 type, and now he's at 50 to 1. So they're starting to take notice of that. So, yeah, he's not – him and Kyle have been working well together, and Austin even mentioned that him and Kyle's driving styles and things they look for in a car are very similar. So he can bounce those things off Kyle,
Yes.
and Kyle can bring, hey, this is my home track. This is what's worked well for me here. I mean, the proof's in the pudding, 5 straight top sixes. So this is what I feel. Here's what you feel.
Yes.
Let's put these together, and let's go out and try to win this race. And for 50 to 1,
that's the thing. It's like in a way similar to the Keselowski thing is that
yeah.
while I can potentially get, and I understand why Dylan's 50 to 1. It's not, he shouldn't, I get that. But hey, maybe this is going to be a breakout year for Dylan because of look at who he's partnering with. So you never know. But again, it is important for him to go out there and have a good race. If that's going to be the deal, he's got to put it up.
And sometimes you could, there's some players who, I know it's hard to compare stick and ball sports to racing, but you see in a stick and ball sport, sometimes it takes that one player to come to that team that elevates everybody up. And you almost just get that feeling that Kyle is that way to RCR. That insert Kyle and just look at the morale of the team. It's hard to explain. It just feels different. You just
especially after a win.
Yeah, RCR they used to not even really be on our radar. I mean, they went through a span of like 4 wins in 8 years. Like it's just, especially when Kevin Harvick left. Like we never even looked at Austin Dillon this way, and now it's like, why not? I mean, Kyle clearly in 2 races is all it took him, point span races to win. Why can't Austin Dillon? Yep. So I would not be shocked if, again, we'd be kicking ourselves like he's 50 to 1 last week, now he's 20 to 1. Yep. Why did we not do it then? So yeah, it's definitely a risk this week.
So then we go to let's talk about Trackhouse, because I know you had a story on Trackhouse on your website.
Yep.
And why not? Now, Chastain, strong last week. Matter of fact, we talked about the live betting last week, and it was good, and it followed through again. I actually, since I already had Kyle, I had to decide between it was Hamlin and Chastain. And Hamlin was like about 3 to 1 at the time. And I think it was somewhere the second stage. And Chastain was about 5 to 1. And so I said, you know what? Hamlin, again, I know he doesn't have a great history at this track. He had never won, right, Fontana?
Yeah, over 30.
So I'm not going to go with that at that number, but I think I could try to, because all the other drivers that were up there I had already, except Hamlin and Chastain. So I said, you know what? Let me go with Chastain. And for a while there, he almost proved to be a good hedge. And now he comes to a track, forget about the first his first career races, his first 7, doesn't matter. Last year, 2nd and 3rd, leading 68 and 83. So that's over, 150 total laps. And he won this race, dominating in the Xfinity Series in 2018. So for me, he's a no-brainer, even at 8 to 1.
Yeah, and you look at Kansas last year, he was 7th in both races. So similar track, was good. He's coming off a 91 laps led. And you look at the stages this year, we've had 4 of them, obviously 2 at each race. He's won 3 of them. He just is around the front. You go back to last year, and I think it's, 6 top 4s in the last 7 races or something like that. So just, to me, I feel like it's a bargain to get him for where we're getting him at. I mean, he should probably be 5 or 6 to 1, but for his odds,
he doesn't have the name recognition yet.
That's the difference. And it's like just because of his name. And that's a better way to bet. Hey, they don't know his name real well, so they have him here. Where they know Kyle Busch's name, they'd have him here. It's probably a wiser bet if you don't think either of the Kyles are going to win. That probably should be your favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, the stats say. So, yeah, you can't go wrong with Chastain this week.
And then his teammate, once again, we're getting a driver at 50 to 1. That who's to say Suarez can have the type of season Chastain had last year, considering the start Suarez has had so far. And then last year, if you take a look at the March race, he had the wreck. He was taken out by Briscoe. And then in the race in October, he led 31 laps. So, And he also raced 3 Xfinity Series races in his career, all top 10s, 2 top 5s, and a runner-up.
And he was 3rd in both stages of the fall race last year. So he was up front. and he's got 2 top 10 finishes this season. There's not many of them drivers that can say that. Trackhouse can with both. So you just feel the momentum. Again, we talked about momentum with Kyle Busch. You just got to feel Kyle and the 2 Trackhouse cars are probably overall, the grand scheme of things, are the 3 best cars right now. And you're going to a track that typically rewards the better cars win. This is granted an overall encompass of things. With the last 14 Cup races in Vegas, 12 of them have been won by a series champion. The only 2 not was Denny Hamlin. So Vegas seems to reward guys that championship frontrunners. These are your 3 right now. The last non-team to win, as far as the big camps, the Penske, Stewart-Haas, Hendricks, JGR, was Roush Fenway and Ganassi. They're the last 2. Well, Ganassi was bought by Trackhouse. Kurt Busch won the 2020 fall race there, and a Ganassi car. So it just kind of adds up that it just feels like a Trackhouse win is coming this weekend. And for some reason, Suarez is 50 to 1.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Come on. I put a couple of bucks on Dillon, and I did the same thing on Suarez.
Yep, you could arguably say these are the top 2 teams right now, and that shows the parity. And strike while the iron's hot.
Also, Chevy, you have JTG Racing with Stenhouse coming off the win. We talked about him earlier. He has a win in the Xfinity Series here in 2012. And he did finish 3rd just a few years ago in 2020, leading 30 laps. So he does have some decent memories here compared to other tracks, which he's been just awful at over his career. And again, we don't know. But based on this first couple of races, because we kind of talked about it last year, because I even picked him up for a little bit on my fantasy team. He started to look like, okay, they turn in the corner, and then just didn't happen. So maybe there's something there now. Who knows? And he's 100 to 1.
Yeah, you throw a couple bucks his way and you're profitable. And the thing with him and Kyle, since they're the only 2 with wins, that I'm curious this weekend, is we saw it the last few years in Vegas. There's been a caution late, and you can gamble on either no tires or 2 tires.
Okay.
If I were in their standpoint, it doesn't do good to change 4. Why would you want to be in the back? When do you hit in that final stage, and do you go just fuel only and get the track position? And we've seen they have high-pass cars. Can they steal a win that way? So I have this feeling if it comes, even if they're 10th or 11th and caution flies, there's 15 to go, don't be shocked to restart on the front row if they just take fuel only.
There you go.
What do they have to lose? They've already got to win. So I would not be shocked if something like that happens. And I went and looked, all 3 of Stenhouse's wins, granted, Daytona and Talladega, have all come in overtime.
All right.
Vegas, late race caution, getting overtime. Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, the only reason I didn't take him, even though he's only $1 bet, is just because of the fact that I put $1 or a couple of bucks on other guys, and it's just still going to be a little bit hard for me to believe he's going to win 2 out of 3 races. That's all.
Exactly. Same. And plus our $100 limit that we it's just like that dollar I needed for the Kyles. I was kind of thin on profits on them. But yeah, if you could go a longer shot package and you might have a winner there too and come out profitable.
Switching to Ford for a bit. RFK, we talked about Keselowski and Buescher. Keselowski 50 to 1, Buescher 80 to 1. So just like Dillon and Suarez, I threw a couple of bucks on Keselowski. Didn't show any signs this team last year here at this track, so there's nothing to go on. All you can go on with Keselowski is he's had a very successful Cup career here with Penske, with 8 top 5s and 3 wins in 17 races. So if he, again, has truly turned the corner with this team, then why not grab him while you can at 50 to 1?
Yeah. Because especially if he qualifies decent, I doubt that number stays 50 to 1 on Sunday. I think they probably well, look, he just finished the top 10. He's good at this track. That number might drop to 20 or 30 to 1 come race day when he can double it right now. So it's a wise choice. I mean, since 2013, when Penske switched to Ford, and granted he's a 14 now, he said he's had a top 10 in all but 3 races at Vegas. So he knows how to get it done there. The track hasn't changed. It's up to car performance at this point. And like I said in Daytona, I think it was Hamlin said the Fords are going to be stronger on the intermediate or bigger tracks. And so far, I think we've seen that. Granted, the Chevy won last week, but Fords generally Logano was up front. Blaney was up front. Harvick looked good. They seem fast. So you're getting a Ford at 50 to 1. Because last.
And speaking about Toyota, we talked about Wallace and Reddick. It hasn't gotten off to a good start so far for Reddick. So that's, again, I want to see. The odds are nice, but and you mentioned, last year, 6th, led 32 laps from the pole, 3 straight top 10s, won the race in the Xfinity Series in 2019. But even though I'm getting good odds and all of that, I have to see something positive out of Reddick with this new team first. And for Wallace, though, a little bit easier for me to put a couple of bucks on him because of the fact that he's 40 to 1. And he had the big incident, as we will recall, with Larson last year, the last time we raced here. And it was a mind blower because he was having a good race. He led 29 laps, so everything was going well. He blew a gasket. And you know what? That's kind of also a little bit of a reason why I made it easier for me to pass on Kyle Larson this week, was because it's different at 40 to 1 to 7 to 1 to go with one of the two drivers that is coming off the last time they raced here, a big incident that you just don't know what's going to happen. Even if nothing does happen, it's got to be on their minds. So there might be a little bit of a distraction mentally, but I'd rather go ahead and take the chance with a 40 to 1 driver with that situation than, of course, a 7 to 1. So I thought, I kind of thought Wallace was a pretty much of a no-brainer at 40 to 1 as long as, he doesn't have any. Maybe he can use this, if anything, as a positive based on what happened last year.
Yeah, you got to look. He won the first stage of that race. He was leading. He was battling for the lead and lost his temper. But I said Vegas is like Kansas. Wallace won Kansas fall race last year. The car, though, that he won in is now where Tyler Reddick is driving.
Yeah.
And that car won both Kansas races last year. The 45 with Kurt Busch won Kansas spring race.
There you go.
The 45 with Bubba Wallace won the Kansas fall race. And people are like, probably, why do you keep talking about Kansas and this is Vegas? Those are very similar tracks. As I said, naturally, as we just talked about, the stats have correlated to both. Reddick was good in his own right at those tracks, and now he's getting the car. So
he's getting a car that's won 2 straight. Kansas.
In Kansas, yes, similar. And this car also was good at Vegas. I believe Kurt Busch had a top 10, if I'm not mistaken, in the Vegas race. The car won, but Kurt Busch was top 10 in Vegas last year, the spring race. Naturally, the fall race, Bubba was driving it. And lost his cool. So it's a good car. Toyota, that's why, I know we'll talk more when we get to the Gibbs guys, but in the Vegas race last year, it shows Bowman won, and it shows Hendrick guys are towards the front. Toyota led 107 of the 274 laps, 39% that day. In Kansas, the first race, they led 64% of that race. In Kansas 2, they led 94 of 267 laps and finished 1, 2, 3, 5. So Toyota actually was pretty good on these mile-and-a-half tracks last year, and you're getting good odds for them. So I kind of naturally, when we get to the Gibbs guys to pick, kind of went heavy with the Toyota just because of what last year showed.
Yeah, makes sense.
And Reddick was 8 to 1 last year, and now you're getting them a car that's capable. You're kind of double the odds. So 2311, I would not be shocked. You could go with JTG again. JTG RCR 2311 could be your first 3 winners for Trackhouse. So
it could happen. Hey, you know what? Absolutely. And I wish Reddick, I just wish he had some positive momentum coming in here.
That's his only thing is, and I talked about this last year. There's some races, even though you have the state circle, like I need to be good here. I feel like we talked about this. I think it was Truex a lot of times last year. He just needs a top 5. Yeah. He just needs a top 10. He doesn't need to swing for the fences. No. He knows what he can do here. That sometimes that might make him more of a better fantasy play than an outright betting play. But for 15 to 1 where he is now, that's why I take him. But he's got to get a top 10. I mean, his first 2 weeks, his finishes 39th and 34th. He's DNF'd in 4 of his last 5 races. If you go back to last year.
Yeah, that's the thing. You do have to go back to last year too. That was not a good end of a season.
No. He's reeling right now. So
he needs something.
He's got to. I use the quote for basketball. Sometimes you just have to see the ball go through the hoop.
That's true.
That's kind of where he's at right now. And kind of Bubba the same way. I mean, we had high expectations for him entering this year, and his finishes are 20th and 30th. So it's not like he's entering with much momentum either. He's got a...
Yeah, what happened last week?
He had an electrical... Something happened at the end.
Oh, okay.
He had a pit. He pulled behind the wall. I think it was an electric... Something happened.
But he was what? Would he have finished in the top 20?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I've got it right
So
here.
he just didn't have a good car last week.
No, he was. Well, he probably would have. I take that back. He was 12th in the first stage and 15th in stage two.
So he had a top 20 car, top 15 car.
Yeah, at top 15 at best. So not good enough to be a top 10. So that's.
And by the way, if it wasn't for that late wreck at the Daytona 500,
he wouldn't.
He was coming hard with Kyle.
Yep. So it's again, he's another one that you just kind of probably have to see the ball going. So top 10s will be good days for him. They have a chance to win, but do you kind of dial it back a little bit and just kind of like, all right, let's get our season going.
At least you got good odds.
Yep, you're getting good odds for him to risk it right now.
Hendrick, you have Larson. We talked about him at 7-1, and remember he lost to Bowman in overtime in the race in March. This race, so we know he's strong there. His last four, if you throw out the wreck last year in this race, in the October race, 2nd, 10th, and 1st, leading over 200 combined laps. Also very strong in the Xfinity Series with a win in 2018 and a couple other really good finishes, including a runner-up. So this is a good track for Larson. And then you take a look at his teammates. Elliott's 10-1, Byron's 12-1, and Bowman is 20-1. Byron, I would have taken at 16 or 18-1. I am not taking him at 12-1. Elliott has just been, he's been okay here. No, the funny thing is with Elliott, his 3 best lap races here: led 73, finished 22nd. Led 70, finished 26th. Led 22, finished 13th. So I don't know what that's about, but it's not good. And Bowman is the defending champ. You know, he typically, as he does, stole the race late in this race. Didn't race in the fall because of the injury, as we know. And overall, he's been good here. 5 top 15s in his last 7, with 3 top 10s, 2 top 5s, and a win. Plus, you are at least getting 20-1.
Yeah, Bowman's the play here out of those. Like you said, I mean, Elliott, 6 finishes at 21st or worse there. Kansas last year, he was 29th and 11th. Coming off of 21st in the fall race, they just need to get a top 10. He said Byron, I don't get the 12-1. Just seems way too steep for me.
I have no idea.
Bowman though, why not? With 3 of his last 5 Vegas starts, he's had a top 6. Like you said, he won. Kansas last year, 9th in the spring race, 4th in the fall. He led over 100 laps in that fall race. So he's the smart play just because his odds are 20-1. To me, I think him and Byron probably should be flipped. But again, I think they're using the name recognition. And we talked about Larson earlier. I mean, Kansas last year too, he was 2nd and 8th in the 2 races. So you kind of know what you're getting out of there. The 2 smart plays, Larson and Bowman, I'd fade the other 2.
Yeah, Byron, I would, again, if you take a look at it, he was in contention last year, but not really to win, but he was hanging around the top 5 and actually finished 5th in one of the races. And he has 2 top 10s in his last 2 March races, for whatever that's worth, compared to the October races. So moving on, next up, let's talk about another couple of Chevy teams. What about Spire? Not Ty Dillon, but Corey LaJoie.
Yeah,
now, is this just a fluky result after the timing because of Daytona, and we know what Daytona can do to Corey LaJoie, or is there something there? And I guess we're going to find out this week because Corey LaJoie, historically, outside of the plate tracks or the former plate tracks, now the super speedways, outside of those, not very good at all.
No, I was wondering how much the starting spot last week played a role because he was
good
12th,
point.
Because from that Daytona finish. So this week with qualifying, let's see where he stacks up, and then we'll see if that changes anything. Do I think he'll win? No. I mean,
by the way, he's 500 to 1.
Yeah, it's granted. I mean, hey, you're getting a guy that, as I just said, he got another top 15. He was 14th last week, but just doesn't.
Well, if he qualifies in the top 15, then maybe he's a good fantasy play.
No, he might be. And now, if you're some of those people in survivor leagues or stuff like that, that would be a wise play because he'll probably bring the car home in one piece. He's not going to be reckless with it. Not a bad option. Ty Dillon, on the other hand, had a terrible start of this season. Yeah, so Corey LaJoie is that team, and I'd just be curious what he can do on Sunday. Top 20, I think a top 15, then it's really going to turn some heads because, look, all it's going to take is stealing a win somewhere. And he's in. He's been running good enough. It's
got 3 more chances, maybe 4 more with Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean Atlanta. Remember how good he ran there? Yeah. So last year, you never know with him. But I'm curious if he can get in the top 15. I think that'd be telling for 3 straight to start the year off with.
Now Legacy's interesting. Matter of fact, I almost put money on both drivers. It would have just been $1 or 2 with Gregson. With Jones, it was a couple of bucks, and that is because he's 40 to 1. He was 8th in October. He's got 4 top 10s total. I'm not totally. This isn't like it's a really good track for Jones, where I'm a lot more confident. But I just figured a couple of bucks on a driver that's had some success here, and that we all kind of feel could have a good season. So why not? Gregson's the interesting one. Now, to expect, speaking of a good fantasy driver, 80 to 1, and look, he's not going to win more than likely. I get that. But he was 11th in October. And maybe we shouldn't be surprised because in 8 starts in the Xfinity Series, he has 8 top 10s, 7 top 5s, 3 runner-ups. Last year, runner-up, leading a combined 139 laps and 11th in the Cup Series in October.
To me, seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Especially, like you said, too, yes, he's a rookie, but he raced the October race in Bowman's car. So he knows what a good car is supposed to feel like. Now, and last year was one of the first starts in that car, because this was shortly after Bowman got hurt. So now he's got a better feel. And Eric Jones last year was 8th in the fall race, so that's the teammate to Gragson. And he was in the top 5, if you remember, right? He was the reason the caution came out, which even caused the pit stops for Bowman to steal the win in the end. Because remember the Gibbs guys, Busch and Truex Jr. were 1-2 before that caution. I think Jones was 3rd or 4th. So, Legacy's a strong sleeper. The only thing that concerned me with them is they also looked good early last year, and this year they don't. I just don't know. I can't pinpoint. Like Eric Jones was only 19th on Sunday. Where last year he was qualifying the front row, top 3 the whole race.
So they need a definite top 15. If not, even a top 10 would be great.
They seem to have gone backwards, and they need to find a way to get back up. And this could, like 23-11, this could be their track. So I'm curious.
Gregson, there's no better stats than this for Gregson. There can't be.
And this is his home race too. He's a Vegas guy.
Well, there you go.
And you're getting it from 80
Put
to
a
1.
buck on him.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. And they can go off strategy in the end. They could be the one that, like, hey, look, stay out or feel lonely or too tired. Just whatever that strategy may be, that's a prime candidate. And he could hold his own up front if he needs to.
I think we're going to close out the Chevys now with Colleague. You have AJ at 100 to 1, Haley at 150 to 1. AJ was also someone that I came close to putting a buck on because if you look at it, he just like we mentioned with Gregson, he got to race last October in the Cup, finished 9th. In the last 2 years in the Xfinity Series in 4 races, 3 top 10s, and he won a race in 2021, throwing a couple of poles and a combined 103 laps. For Haley, this has just been an okay track for him. Not bad, not great, but solid, okay for him. He led 16 laps in October, a couple of top 20s last year, also 4 top 10s in the Xfinity Series. But AJ's the one that if you wanted to put a buck on too, I'd be okay with.
Yeah, AJ and Gregson would be those are the 2 my longest of the long shots that I wanted.
Yes.
It's like, are they going to win? I don't know. I'll spend the money up top. But you never know. Like you said, I mean, that he knows how to win there. He just did it. So Haley I'd punt on, but Allmendinger and Gregson are two very strong sleepers to play this week.
All right, Toyota, Joe Gibbs. So we have Bell 12-1, Hamlin 10-1, Truex 12-1, Gibbs 80-1. And out of this group, you went ahead with Hamlin, Bell, and Truex, and I just went with Hamlin. I almost took Truex, but I just, as I said, I used the money a little bit more on both the top guys and on some long shots. We'll start with Hamlin because Hamlin, in his last 4 top fives and a win, with 341 laps led. That's 68 per race. He led 137 in his 221 win, his 2021 win in October that year. He was 5th last October, and then should have probably won the race. This race last March, as we know, when he had the little stick shift gear. What the hell am I doing? Am I a 4-year-old? Which totally eliminated his chance from winning that race. And he was excellent at Kansas last year.
Yeah, I mean, 4th and 2nd at Kansas, and you mentioned 4 top fives his last time at Vegas.
He should be 10-1. I mean, that's a bargain.
That's what shocked me. He probably should be up there with Kyle in the 6-1 range,
Maybe.
But 10-1 is him and Chastain. Again, you talk about two sleepers on the other end of the extreme between Gregson and Allmendinger. Him and Chastain arguably should be two of your favorites, and they're not.
That's why I took them both.
Wise play for those two. I mean, Hamlin's definitely a top 5 contender. He'd be a wise play to play if you could find a bet somewhere in the top 5, the finish in the top 5. That would be one I would definitely wager on.
Now, and again, Bell and Truex, both are 12-1. Truex has a couple of wins. Matter of fact, 11th or better in 12 of his last 13 at this track, with 7 top 5s, a runner-up, and 2 wins. But the only thing I'm a little bit concerned with, he's led only 9 laps in his last 6 outings there. Bell, meanwhile, was 10th from the pole in March, leading 32 laps. He got loose, stage 2, running 4th. That kind of hurt his chances. And he's had a good run, too, in the Xfinity Series. The only thing with Bell, for me, is sort of like I was saying with a couple of these other drivers, is I don't like the momentum that, the start of the season so far. I don't count Daytona, of course. He was never really in that race to win it. That was a lucky third. But last week, that was, I don't know. I just kind of feel that I want to see something. I want to see some good Christopher Bell first. But I can completely see why you would take him and Truex. If you had to take one of the two, who would you go with?
Probably Truex, just because he's more proven, and he was second. He was battling the lead with Kyle at the end of this race last year when that caution came out. So he was there. In Kansas last year, he was 6th and 5th, respectively. So they're, again, around that top 5. Bell, you just never know what you're going to get with him. That's the only problem with him is he could be good. I mean, Kansas, he was 5th and 3rd, top 5 in both. In the fall race, he was 4th in stage 1 in Vegas, and he was kind of an innocent bystander with the Wallace and Larson incident. He was up front and they wrecked into him, just minding his own business. So last week, he just minding his own business, caught up in that restart crash. So the luck factor, he just doesn't have it.
Yeah.
And is he going to turn it around? And you also got to look at, as my picture shows behind me, he was on the pole last year for this he's right there on the pole for this race. So you just don't know what you're going to get. He could be up front, but again, the pole factor, they never win there. And Truex just seems more
consistent,
reliable.
yes.
12-1. Yeah.
And look, this is why I said at the very beginning, there are a lot of contenders to choose from.
Yep.
When we're saying, like, especially for me, I haven't picked even the ones that you have. That it's not that you don't like them. It's just that you just have so many ways you can go. But look, that's why we're trying to give you as much information as you want to use, whichever way you guys want to go out there, the viewers, because you're going to have your own opinion, obviously, yourself. And by all means, these are the drivers that we have mentioned, the Bells, the Truex that I haven't taken, and we're going to get to a few others. If you guys feel differently, go for it. Yeah, and Gibbs, forget it at this point. He hasn't raced a Cup Series, even though he was very good in the Xfinity Series here, including a win. We just need to see something out of him that means that he's capable of racing with the Cup boys so far.
Yeah, because as you said, Kyle and his dealings there, and that's his car. But and Gibbs was in this race, in the fall race, in the 23 car when Bubba moved over to replace Busch. So he like Gragson his race here, but he didn't have the success Gragson had. So I just, like you said, I got to see more out of him. Do I think he's going to go out and win the third race of the year?
I doubt.
I mean, it'd be a funny storyline that Kyle wins last week and his replacement wins this week, but I just don't see it. There's a reason he's 80-1.
Yes.
You're getting a better value with Gragson than you are the same odds as you would go with Gibbs.
All right, and then we've got Penske and the Wood brothers, these 4 drivers. So you took Logano, and that's it, and I took Blaney, and that's it. The difference for me was the odds with Logano. Again, Larson, Logano, I had to take out. I just can't take them all, or I just decided not to. But Blaney, look, this has actually been a good track for Blaney. 8 top 10s out of 13, 5 of those top 5s. He had the wreck in March, but that's because he got spun out by Keselowski, and he had a fine car that day, and he had issues with the tire going down, leading 39 laps in second place with 40 to go. This was one of those bad luck races we were talking about with him last year. Between the pit stops and the bad luck, he could have easily won this race last year. And he also had 2 Xfinity Series races, both top 5s with a runner-up. So at 12-1, definitely taking Blaney. And that's why it's like I'll take Blaney over Logano with the 4-point difference. Logano, we know he won this race in the playoffs in October. Kind of stole that. Yep. He was always at the top, but kind of stole that late. 3 wins out of 19, over 500 laps, and 11 top 10s in his last 14, but only 2 top 10s in his last 5. So why did you take Logano over Blaney?
Just comfort. The same way if I had to choose between Truex and Bell.
Blaney's got to start finishing races and win. No, he's got to start winning races.
Yeah, I mean, last year he made a mistake, like he mentioned in turn 2. Like the tire, he's like, that was my fault. I was pushing too hard, and he had a car capable of winning. And Logano ended up pit strategy winning. And you just feel in these races, if you're just running up front, you just got to be there. All bets are off in the end. Like we just like Stenhouse Jr. only led the final 10 or 11 laps in Daytona. Kyle last week, he led 3 times for 27 laps. 21 of them, 21 to 27 were that final stint. You just kind of have to be there. And I trust Logano when it comes time to be there. We'll just do that, be there. Blaney, it's either him or his pit crew. Somebody seems to screw it up at the end. So I just want to see him actually put a whole race together. Where maybe it happened Sunday. Logano's more proven.
Well, look, he got who knocked him out last week? I forget who it was. But he had the
Blaney?
Yes.
Yeah, he was in that wreck. Yeah. He was in that restart wreck. That again wasn't his doing. He just happened to be there.
Yes.
And it's just there. He just something always happens to him. I just want to see him consistently not have something, and then I'll jump back on that train because he's got the talent. Yeah. He's got the car that's capable of it. He just has to do it.
Well, and the thing is as soon as it happens, then watch out.
Yeah, because if it happens this week, I kind of looked ahead to next week. So I always usually plan a week ahead too. I think he's going to be my outright favorite next week at Phoenix. He's that good there, and he led over 100 laps. I'm pretty sure in both Phoenix races last year. The only reason he didn't win the spring one was another pit stop, and the fall one is because he didn't want to pass Logano to risk the chance. He finished second, so. He could win this week, and I wouldn't be shocked if he won next week. So, yeah, grab him the number while you can, especially the futures, because could a lot change there here pretty soon with him.
Cindric 80-1, Burton 250-1, Burton 4 top 10s and 4 Xfinity Series races, Cindric 5 top 10s, 3 top 5s, and 8 Xfinity Series races, and solid in his last 4, 4th, 6th, and 2nd, but not all that great as a rookie last year. Cindric definitely needs to have a solid run to get his confidence going this season.
Yeah, and I just look at, too, we talked about this earlier in the show, and all the past champions winning this, and out of the last 26 Vegas races in general, So that's 13 years worth. 23 of them were won by a past champion, somebody that's a champion. I just don't see a second-year driver just all of a sudden jumping into that. Especially with all these guys who are mentioned above, that between the Toyotas and you got your longer shot sleepers, and I just feel like there's better choices out there than those two. And Burton, for those odds, it doesn't hurt to throw $1 his way because you never know. Benedetto did good in that car, but again, you also got to look at that's a different car than we're running right now too. So
he needs another top 15 this week.
He does. It was a solid day for him last week to get 15th for a second year. So just continually building that momentum for him.
And then the final Fords, the Stewart-Haas Fords, you got Harvick at 20-1, Briscoe 40-1, Priest 60-1, and Almirola 80-1. Harvick, once again, I guess, let's see. Actually, did we actually not take both of us, not take Harvick?
I don't think so.
No, we didn't.
I didn't trust him.
It's the first time we haven't taken Harvick together in a while.
It was.
Yeah, because he's getting the good odds. But look, he hasn't led a lap in his last 5, so that's not good. He does have a couple of wins. But last year, 12th and 12th, nothing special. But in this group, we talked about it already. The dude is Briscoe. We talked about the 4th in October. He was leading the race with 16 laps to go in October, by the way. He's been 11th or better in 4 of 5 Xfinity races, including a 2020 sweep, leading 253 laps combined. So, yes, Ryan Briscoe is a major bargain at 40-1
Chase Briscoe.
Chase Briscoe, thank you.
I do that.
There's enough Ryans
Ryan
out there. We don't need another. Yeah.
Well, Ryan Briscoe's what used to be an IndyCar driver. Who Nicole Briscoe on SportsCenter. That's her husband.
Okay, there you go.
We'll put that there. But I did the same thing a lot. Yeah, 4th last time we talked about him. I mean, Briscoe is the no-brainer play here. Plus, he was 20-1 in the playoff race last year, so you're doubling the odds for him right now. Harvick, he was Mr. Vegas for a while. Three top 4 finishes in a 5-race span, but after 8th, 10th, 20th, 9th, 12th, just doesn't make sense. And then in Kansas, 15th and 36th last year. He just, after getting a top 5 last week, you just got to feel that, again, he's another one that he just needs a top 5. But with the Toyotas, if they've got a pulse like they had last year, it's going to be hard for him to finish ahead of them.
Well, but the competition, again, is too tough this week.
To
go ahead and roll the dice with Kevin Harvick this week. I mean, there's just too many other choices.
There is, because usually getting Harvick at 20-1, it's a no-brainer.
And there's only 4 or 5 guys to worry about. Yeah.
Yeah, but this week between the 23-11 cars and the Gibbs cars, granted we're going to punt on Gibbs, but that still leaves 5 Toyotas right there. And then you got the Hendrick cars. We talked about Bowman and Larson, there's 7. And then you've got Kyle, there's 8. And then you got your sleepers. I mean, you just do the math. It's like, well, Harvick would be lucky to get it. Really, where he's finished at is about where he should finish at on Sunday. So,
well, and let's remember, as we said in the beginning, though, Ford has won 5 of the last 10. Chevy's won 3 of the last 5.
Yep.
So, again, more reason for there to be uncertainty on who the heck is going to wind up winning this race.
Which is why, if you could find a good bet out there, because a lot of sports books will have this closer to the weekend, which manufacturer is going to win.
Okay.
You're going to get, because of those stats, better odds for Toyota, naturally, because you'd probably think of them as not potential to win. But as I said, well, I'll say it again just in case I want to make this point. They led 107 to 274 laps in this race last year and were 1-2 before that fluke caution in the end. In Kansas 1, they led 171 out of 267 laps. They finished 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. Kansas 2, they led 94 to 267. They finished 1, 2, 3, 5. So they've proven they're probably the more consistent and more speed at these type of tracks. So if you look at a lot of times, I bet you'll see Chevy or Ford will probably be like minus 110. The other one will probably be plus 110, and I bet Toyota's plus 200 or 300. That's probably the third of the third.
Okay.
3 out of 3. I would probably bet that a Toyota driver would win.
By the way, we'll close out last year in this race. Alex Bowman won the race, and nobody picked him, so we didn't make anything. I had Larson as he finished second. You had Larson, he finished second, and CJ had Larson, who finished second. So we all lost out in that overtimer to Bowman in this race last year. And in the South Point race, that one was easy for you, but for some reason you didn't take your championship driver, Joe Logano.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember what happened there, but
because he was reeling in it. Remember that? He was not running good entering that weekend. And I looked like, he's top 10 guy, but not a top 5 guy, and he turns out and wins. That's another
CJ
reason why.
won with him.
Yeah, CJ took him.
12-1, Logano, and he put 35. That's when we had more money to spend, and he had 420. He made on Logano winning that race. So.
Wise play.
We'll find out what CJ's going with when he gives us his picks later in the week. Again, keep in mind, and it could be for next week as well, depending on CJ's schedule, but we will have the picks posted up on the website. So check it out, racereviewonline.net. And next week is Phoenix, so we'll get by that. Yeah. And then we will also, don't forget, if you're an IndyCar fan and an F1 fan, check out CJ's F1 report. He talks a little bit about the race in Bahrain and the season. That's been on the channel for a few days. And Eric is going to have a report on the IndyCar race coming up this week at St. Pete. So check that out. We'll have a link in the description area of this channel so you can check that out. And definitely check out everything regarding IndyCar and NASCAR over at racereviewonline.net. So Eric, appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thank you.